John Noe unveils Greater Than We Believe with your host, Stephen King.
Well, greetings. It's so good to see you back. My name again is Stephen King, and this is my friend John Noe. We are putting on a video series called Greater Than We Believe. We have been blessed to be able to have 49 videos posted so far, and we really hope that they have benefited you and blessed you. Today's video is number 50 in the series. And a couple
We've gone to L.
Gone to L. Well,
Roman numerals.
Yeah, Roman numeral. A couple weeks, it'll be 52. It'll be our 1 year anniversary. I feel like God has blessed the effort. I still think we have a lot more we can do, and I'm hoping that we're blessing you with this. We are really getting into some good things here. We're talking about the kingdom and kingdom Christianity. And today, the video we're going to put on John has named it, Are We Christians Losing America? Now, even though I know this video goes worldwide through YouTube, we live in the United States of America, and we're very conscious of the situation we have here with Christianity in our locale. I'm hoping that this will have some sort of an appeal to others too, since we're kind of on a world stage here, and people are very aware of our issues and problems here. But anyway, glean from it what you can. John, thank you so much for inviting us back into your home again. And inform us of where we stand as Christians here in the United States of America.
Well, what could be more appropriate on December 7th today?
Yes. Even though you're seeing this later, which will be the 24th, it should be Christmas the 24th, we're filming December 7th.
So I guess this topic is appropriate. Are we Christians losing America? Because we almost lost it.
Yes.
Back then.
Yes,
in fact, if you haven't seen the movie Midway, go see the movie Midway. It is a great epic about that time period. But so Stephen, fasten your seatbelts.
Okay.
And you're over the top.
Oh, I got the harness too. Okay.
Yeah. This is a problematic issue.
Yes.
And it's a much disputed question. But before we get into that, I want to share something. Speaking of World War II, Pearl Harbor, and all that stuff.
Sure.
A quote from General Douglas MacArthur.
I'll be back. No, I shall return.
Well, not that one. Here's what he said.
Okay.
Now, he was a supreme commander of the Allied forces in the Pacific.
Yes.
He says this: history fails to record a single precedent in which nations subject to moral decay have not passed into political and economic decline. There has been either a spiritual awakening to overcome the moral lapse or a progressive deterioration leading to ultimate natural disaster. What a sober state. Again, he said, hasn't been a single precedent. So are we Christians losing America? Are we going to be the single precedent that doesn't? Or are we going to follow in the path that does? Make no mistake, Stephen. The America that you and I grew up in
Yes, it's gone.
and have known is being fundamentally reshaped.
Yes.
Now, before I get into that, I originally wrote up this material in an article that was published in Movie Guide magazine back when they used to do hard copies. This is September 2007, and I was out in Hollywood quite a bit back then, pitching my movie on AD. Oh, here was a tentative title: AD 70 Warriors of the Last Temple, and working with producers, trying to get them interested in it, and script consultants, and Dr. Ted Baer, who is publisher of Movie Guide magazine and also the chairman of the Christian TV and Television Commission out in Hollywood that does an annual gala awarding awards for the best Christian movie, film, director, producers, and all that kind of stuff. And he published this article, which was in very virgin form back then, and I just pulled my, oh, there it is. And it was called, if you can read that for our people,
Why are Christians losing America? A discussion outline with John Noe, PhD.
So I was working on this material all the way
Long
back
time
then.
ago.
I'm not going to get into the movie because that would take us
Yeah.
4 or 5 videos to do that. But anyway, make no mistake, you know, America has changed. Many voices in many corners of the body of Christ concur and are sounding the trumpet calls of warning and alarm. For example, and progressively, Stephen, during the past 75 years or so, America has driven God, biblical values, principles, and morals out of our schools,
Yes.
out of our universities, out of our government, out of our courts, out of our businesses, out of our culture, out of our families, and out of the public square.
Yes.
Rabbi Kahn, in his best-selling book, The Harbinger, which some of our subscribers and viewers might have read, said this. He terms this reshaping a nation's apostasy. That is, a severing of its connection to God and to the biblical foundation on which the nation, was established. So this is the penultimate question. Can one lose something one never had? In other words, was America ever a Christian nation? The answer depends upon who you ask.
That's true.
And how they define the expression Christian nation.
Yes.
But if America never was a Christian nation, then the Christian right's exhortation to reclaim America or take America back for Christ wouldn't make any sense, would it?
Be moot, correct.
Be moot. Even evangelicals, Stephen, are divided on this issue. Christian Smith, in his book Christian America, cites recent surveys that show 60% of evangelicals in America believe that America was once a Christian nation. 10% say it never was. And 30%,
Oh, no.
he says, uncertain.
Uncertain.
Don't know. Don't care. What's on TV?
Yeah.
And so forth. He goes on, and he says this. He says, yes, America once was what we might call a Christian nation in some important ways. Much of that has eroded in the 20th century. As a result, America has lost its moral bearings, which in turn has produced significant harmful social breakdown. This guy crazy, or you know what he's talking about? And then he goes on to say, no, that's where I stopped there. So, let me stop for just a moment and say I would like to give our viewers a taste of some of the literature on this dispute of, can we lose something we never had?
Okay.
Or was Christianity, was America ever a Christian nation? And the first one I'm going to bring out is Christian Overman in his book Assumptions That Affect Our Lives: How Worldviews Determine Values and Influence Behavior and Shape Culture. And on this issue, he states, Christian nation. The phrase itself is a misnomer. In a sense that a country can never be Christian. America or any country, he's saying. Only individual people within nations can be Christians. But what the 1892 court did in America was clearly say was our laws and institutions must necessarily be based upon and employ the teachings of the Redeemer of mankind. And in this sense and to this extent, our civilization and our institutions are emphatically Christian.
Yes.
So in other words, it's how you define what a Christian nation is. To say that our culture is emphatically Christian today would be blasphemy, as we will progressively or degressively, depending on how you term it, see as we pursue on in these next several videos. Our revised laws are no longer based upon the teachings of Jesus. as it once was said by the Supreme Court they should be. But the point of this chapter that he's writing here in our video is simply that it was once thought that they should be. Okay. Author note here, a redeemed nation, as I mentioned already, would have to have virtually every citizen born again, and its societal institutions, government, and so forth reflecting Christian principles and values. And this was never the case at any time in America's history. All right. Next book. I'm going to have you read this one.
All right.
Oberman here. In yellow, if you would.
All right. He says the very basis of law in early America was openly founded upon the Bible, as seen in the commentaries of William Blackstone, an English jurist who greatly influenced the colonists. He wrote from the assumption that God is the source of all authority.
Who?
God. And that his word rests above all other words, even those of kings. His commentaries clearly leaned upon scriptures for support. This is evident in even a casual glance at his work, which for many years was the standard text for lawyers trained in early America.
Author note here, Stephen. All law is based on some standard or interpretation of what is right and what is wrong.
I agree with that.
Righteous John Russ Dooney, in his book, his tome, Law and Society. You believe I read this kind of stuff? He has this say, the United States was assumed to be a Christian nation by the courts and people up to World War I. But since the state schools taught humanism, explicitly or implicitly, after World War II, humanism began to dominate the courts and to outlaw Christianity. The extent to which Christianity has been outlawed is by no means as yet total, but the direction is clearly toward a total outlawing of Christianity as incompatible with democracy. Pure humanism and total democracy are not compatible with a faith so divisive as Christianity, with its heaven and hell, saved and lost, good and evil. Interesting stuff, huh? On the other side of the coin, on the negative side, A Religion Gone Bad by Mel White. I'm going to ask you to read.
Is he a secular humanist or what?
I'm not even going to get into that.
Okay.
Would you read the yellow portions here and here?
Yes.
If you would, please.
He says it is very important for each of us to make it clear to our fundamentalist friends and neighbors that this is not, that's all capitals, a Christian nation.
Yeah, thanks for pointing
Put that in all
N-O-T.
not a Christian nation.
Right.
And down here it says, they are just plain wrong. There is ample evidence to support the facts that this is not, nor was it ever intended to be a Christian nation. The only mention of God in those early documents upon which our government is based in the Declaration of Independence, in which God is simply nature's God, not defined in any way by the Bible or the Christian faith. There is no further mention of God, let alone Jesus, in the Declaration, the U.S. Constitution, or the Federalist Papers, which have been described as the working documents of the Founding Fathers. The cross, primary sign of the Christian faith, was not included in our flag, on our coins, or in any other national symbol.
There you have it.
Interesting.
Interesting. An author note here, the counter-argument for the reason the federal documents aren't more religious is because the states reserve for themselves the right to mandate, or not mandate, state churches and religious laws. Interesting,
Not be
huh?
federal, but they could do state.
Bill O'Reilly, would you read that?
Oh, yeah.
Page 200, marked in yellow.
Bill O'Reilly says, the revisionist, secular, progressive historians run around claiming the Founding Fathers were not at all influenced by Judeo-Christian philosophy, that their intent was to create a country where spirituality was a private matter. That is absolute nonsense, pure and simple. Just read the words of the Declaration of Independence, and you'll see the revisionists are lying.
Wow, isn't that something?
I like
All
that.
right, now, all right, I want you to read Brandon House sections from his book here called One Nation Under Man. How that?
Uh-oh.
One Nation Under Man. The worldview war between Christians and the secular left. If you would look at page 31 and read that for the folks, if you would, please.
He says the founders warned us repeatedly that we could not expect God's blessing or protection and could very well face his wrath if we ever make a practice of violating his principles.
Do we believe that?
I do. Engraved on the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. are these words of Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence and our third president. God, who gave us life, gave us liberty. And can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed their only firm basis, a conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are the gift of God? That they are not to be violated, but with his wrath? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever.
Wow.
That's sobering.
That is sobering. Turn to page 44.
Okay.
Read the yellow excerpts there, if you would.
He says the deliberate use by our forefathers of the Ten Commandments as the foundation of America's legal system and constitutional republic, is further evidence they never intended to create a secular nation or government. Wow. And they did not intend the First Amendment to be used as a tool to eradicate a religious foundation and religious expression and practices from the American government.
Page 44.
That was page 44.
Or 47.
47. He says the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story explained succinctly the actual meaning of the First Amendment. The whole power over a subject of religion is left exclusively to the state governments.
There it is.
I love that.
State governments. One of the prime reasons more wasn't in the federal documents, Constitution and Declaration of Independence, is because of this.
Yep. The whole power over the subject of religion is left exclusively to the state governments to be acted upon according to their own sense of justice and the state constitutions. The intent of the founders was never to restrict religion. They were clearly concerned about the government's potential to interfere with religious freedoms.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
People who don't understand, don't read history are doomed to.
Doomed to repeat it. That's correct.
Okay. David Barton, in his book, which is a great book, it's got a lot more in it, Original Intent, the Courts, the Constitution, and Religion, kind of summarizes things. He says, the fact that the founders quoted the Bible more frequently than any other source is indisputably a significant commentary on its importance in the foundation of our government.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Billy Graham offers this response to a reader's comment. That comment was, I thought America was a Christian nation. Billy Graham says, and this is in his National Syndicated column 2005. He says, since its beginning, America has been deeply influenced by the Judeo-Christian tradition and by teachings of the Bible. Our legal system was largely built on the Bible's teaching about right and wrong, and our forefathers took seriously its statement that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord.
Yes.
Psalm 33:12. At the same time, not every Christian at the beginning of our nation was a committed Christian, nor are they today. In fact, some today even want to banish all mention of God from the public life, something our nation's founders never intended. Let's pray, Billy says, that this will never happen. Well, folks, it's happening.
Yes.
And has been happening for quite a while. Tim Ewing, in Worldview Magazine, 2007, an article called Why Was America Founded as a Christian Nation? Provides perhaps the best explanation of what is meant by the often used phrase, a Christian nation. He says, it is one whose laws, public policy, and form of government are rooted in biblical Christian principles. Yes, the evidence for this is readily abundant. Those who would deny it, and there are many now, are demonstrating either their ignorance of the historical founding facts or their bias against them. Ewing then amplifies that his position by claiming that, quote, the notion that you can't legislate morality is false. All truth, or the truth is, all laws reflect, codify, or uphold moral code.
Yes.
My wife, when she was a legislator, says, that's all we legislators do.
Legislate morality.
Is legislation morality. The only two questions are, whose morality?
That's right.
And what is it based on?
Yes.
All right. So what may we reasonably conclude, Stephen, at this point in time? Well, one is that the debate may never fully be resolved. Mm-hmm. Why not? Because, as we have seen, the crux issue centers on how one defines what is or what is not a Christian nation. And yet ample historical evidence exists that America was founded upon Judeo-Christian principles and a profession of faith in a creator God who works and governs in the affairs of nations and peoples and who has established absolute standards to which we are all accountable, and who holds all persons are fallen creatures, and we need to be governed by some. And we cannot be our own lawgiver.
That's right.
Or our own judge. So, our Declaration of Independence could rightfully have been called a Declaration of
Dependence.
Dependence. Yes. Absolutely. But today it has become politically incorrect to claim America was founded as a Christian nation or even upon Judeo-Christian principles and values. But these four values, I believe, are not contestable. Number one, America was not founded on any other religion.
That's true.
Or secular humanism.
That's true too.
Two, America was more Christian a few decades ago.
Yes.
A few years ago.
Yes.
Three,
lifetime.
Christianity has been and is under assault.
Yes.
And its influence is waning.
Yes.
Rapidly. As some in our nation seek to erase our country's Christian heritage and replace it with a godless one. And four, we Christians are responsible.
Yes.
For this cultural deterioration and potential demise of our country as it becomes progressively more and more non and anti-Christian. Because most of this change has happened on our watch.
Yes.
Moreover, God may already, Stephen, be removing his blessings and protective hand from our country. And many people think so. Thus, America's moral tailspin and rapid accelerating decline are becoming more and more evident as bigger upheavals, hardships, persecutions, and judgments from God may be ahead if this trend is not stopped and reversed. You believe that?
I do.
In the book, I had to go through a 20-year capitulation of decay and decline, starting with the statement by, here it is, Tony Evans.
I love Tony Evans.
Let me put the problem to you this way in the form of a question. How can we have all these churches on all these street corners filled with all these members and all these preachers and elders and deacons and yet have all this mess in America? Yeah. And so forth, so forth, so forth. And I go on over, I think, 60-some different issues in here, and I'm not going to do that in this video. But the last one is in 2015, because this book was published in 2016, so that puts that in order. The legalization of same-sex marriage.
Yes.
So, I ask you, has secular humanism now surpassed Christianity as the moral consensus in America, as it has in Western Europe and is in Canada? And what do you think the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years will bring? Which brings us to this poignant and relevant question. To pledge or not to pledge allegiance to the United States of America that may not be under God any longer. If it is true that America is fast becoming a nation that no longer desires to be one nation under God, but rather one nation under secular humanism, or one nation divided by God, take your pick. If it is true, Stephen, that rapidly growing numbers of Americans either want to forget God or are shaking their fists at him, if it is true that God has been expelled from school
Yes.
and most other areas of public society, except for allowing him to be cloistered in our churches, which may come to an end someday too if this trend is not reversed, and if it is true that the secular humanists control the courts, the schools, the media, the entertainment, and so forth, and are planning to remove every vestige of God from this great land and hijack our country, then with all these God-expelling changes in America that we have witnessed over the past 20, 40, 60 years, can we committed Christians still make the pledge of allegiance to one nation under God? Or are its words and meaning no longer viable and applicable and needing to be changed again? You know, those words were added back in 1954.
Yes.
Seriously, if our increasing secular country is no longer one nation under God, as many voices are increasingly pointing out, then why should we committed Christians continue to pledge allegiance? In today's paper, Indianapolis Star, we've been taking for years, and I always read, here's Billy Graham's column. And again, as we mentioned at the start of this video, it's Remembering Pearl Harbor Day.
Yes.
And I flagged it and thought, you know, well, I'm going to use this. The question that Billy Graham has answered is the United States is the person writing
Yes.
makes a statement. The United States is on the brink of a slippery slope, and he goes on. And Billy answers from heaven, obviously. Billy said, we are always chasing after what the world says is better. Before we know it, is that it? Yeah. Before we know it, we have exchanged faith in God for following the gods of this world. This is the repetitive history of the human race. Though there are those who are rewriting America's rich heritage, arguing that its founders never intended for the nation to be under God, but the prized documents say otherwise. Documents that, like the Constitution and Declaration, the Federalist Papers, and so forth. I'm going to fast forward to the conclusion of my book, where which is called Turning the World Upside Down Again, and there's an awful lot in between.
A lot in between.
Yeah. But here's my pledge, because I believe pledging allegiance is serious stuff. I mean, this is not just a perfunctory act, right? Would you agree?
I agree.
What do you think of this pledge? I pledge allegiance to the kingdom of God and to the Lord Jesus Christ, for which it stands. One world under God, invisible in all things, with liberty and justice and grace and mercy, love and peace, power and joy for all. What do you think of that?
That's beautiful.
So are we Christians losing America today, Stephen? Is God's judgment already upon us? Are we perhaps ensnared in our second American Revolution and dancing the dance of history into decline and demise? Or am I naively enmeshed in a conspiracy theory regarding much to do about nothing? We'll explore that in our next video, America's Second Revolution.
The Second American Revolution. Wow. Thank you, John. That's going to be a good one. John, I really appreciate all the time you put into this, and It's very thought provoking. I personally am very patriotic. I love my country, and I do say the Pledge of Allegiance without thought. But my first loyalty is to God Himself and to that kingdom. And so, with our country descending into the abyss, it seems here lately, when it comes to our moral standard, it's pause for thought. So I'm hoping all of you out there will be thinking too. And the good news is we got several more videos lined up that's going to basically say, okay, if you agree, then here we got a plan we can work on. So he's not just doing chicken noodle talking about the sky falling. He's actually got a formula and a plan that hopefully we can work together and get some good news out of this. But thank you, John, for that. And we look forward to video 51. The next one will be the Second American Revolution. Side point, you always see John bringing out books. He owns all these books. He reads all these books. John is always spending time reading and researching. I don't know, even if in our next few videos we're going to mention another book, a specific one, but I have one that I read about a year and a half ago. It's called If You Can Keep It by Eric Metaxas. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
I'm familiar with him.
Okay, he wrote an excellent book, and that expression, if you can keep it, was actually a quote from Benjamin Franklin when they came out after
That's
having...
right. That's right.
And he tells that story, explains the name of the woman who asked him if we have a republic or I forgot what the question was.
Democracy.
But he said, yeah, he says that we have a republic if you can keep it. But he goes into this discussion we're having about whether or not Christianity was involved in the founding of America and how it works. It's an excellent book. I highly recommend reading it. It made a lot of sense to me, and it fits in, it dovetails perfectly with the discussion we're having here. So John, thank you for the time you've spent with this. Thank you folks for coming and joining us. Please continue to pray for our ministry. We will see you on the next one, number 51, the Second American Revolution. Thank you and God bless you. Good night. Okay.